Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating narrative straight out of the Mahabharata. Now, at first glance, the story we're about to explore looks, well, kind of like your classic mythological romance. We're talking celestial maidens, lovesick royals, divine interventions, the whole shebang. But when we look a bit closer at the text, we actually discover this razor-sharp lesson in political strategy and leadership. It's literally a masterclass hidden right inside a myth. As we unpack this together, you'll see how unbridled power is absolutely useless without disciplined strategic counsel. So let's just jump right in and see how this ancient text translates into some seriously timeless leadership principles.
Section 1. A King's Despair.
Okay, let's dive into this. The central figure here is King Samvarana. By all accounts, he's a mighty warrior, a formidable monarch, a literal smiter of all foes. But as our text opens, this great conqueror has been completely brought to his knees. And get this, it wasn't an enemy army that defeated him. It was lovesickness. He's become so completely obsessed with a celestial maiden named Tapati that his kingdom and his duties are just entirely forgotten. The text actually describes his ministers searching the forest for him, only to find this mighty bowman lying forsaken on the ground like a rainbow dropped from the firmament. Isn't that just incredible imagery? A rainbow is awe-inspiring when it's up in the sky, right? Much like a king on his throne. But on the ground, it's completely out of place. It's powerless. It perfectly captures a leader who has lost his center, entirely deprived of his senses by desire.
If we follow the text, we can map out a really clear timeline of the king's physical and emotional breakdown. So, on day 1, the king collapses out in the solitary forest. His minister-in-chief, who's described as a guy old in wisdom, achievements, and policy, rushes over to him. The minister actually fears the king has fallen from hunger or fatigue, so he raises him up and revives him by sprinkling cold, lotus-scented water over his crownless head. But you see, the king isn't physically wounded, he's emotionally paralyzed. After slowly coming to, Samvarana dismisses everyone except that chief minister. He purifies himself, sits upon the mountain breast, and just kicks off this grueling 12-day vow, worshipping the sun god, Surya, day and night without a single break.
Which brings us to Section 2. Enter the Rishi. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the ultimate fixer steps in. King Samvarana has been sitting there for 12 days. His military might? Useless right now. His wise worldly ministers can only offer him fragrant water and comforting words. They definitely can't solve a cosmic problem. That is when the chief priest, Vasishtha, arrives on the scene. Notice how he operates here. He doesn't do guesswork. Step 1, he arrives on the 12th day and instantly knows the monarch has lost his senses over Tapati, not by asking around, but through his immense ascetic power. Step 2, being a virtuous sage looking out for his king, he immediately addresses Samvarana and gives him total assurance that the problem will be solved. And then Step 3, Vasishtha just bypasses standard earthly protocols altogether. Possessed of his own brilliant splendor, he literally ascends upward into the sky to secure an interview directly with Surya, the sun god. I mean, that is what you call high-level escalation.
And that leads us to Section 3, a divine negotiation.
So Vasishtha flies up into the heavens to have what is essentially a cosmic boardroom meeting with Vivaswat, the god of 1,000 rays, also known as Surya. Surya welcomes him warmly, promising to grant whatever this great rishi demands, no matter how difficult it might be. And Vasishtha? He absolutely does not beat around the bush. He introduces himself cheerfully, but with total authority. I am Vasishtha. Then he makes this bold, direct demand. He asks for Surya's daughter, Tapati, on behalf of King Samvarana. He vouches for the king, calling him a monarch of mighty achievements, conversant with virtue, and a high-souled firmament ranger who will make a worthy husband. Vasishtha is really acting as the ultimate diplomatic envoy here.
Surya takes a second to assess this proposal and logically balances the cosmic equation. On side A, we have Samvarana, who Surya readily acknowledges as the best of monarchs. On side B, we have Tapati, the best of women. And brokering this whole deal, Vasishtha, the best of rishis. Surya looks at this equation and basically concludes, well, what should we do therefore but bestow her on Samvarana? The deal is struck effortlessly, all because of the immense respect commanded by the advisor, Vasishtha.
The romance reaches its spectacular, dramatic conclusion right here. Surya hands Tapati over to Vasishtha. The rishi brings her down to the earthly realm, right where King Samvarana has just finished up his 12-night vow. The text describes Tapati coming down like lightning from the clouds, dazzling the 10 points of the heavens. The lovesick king is, as you'd guess, exceedingly glad, and the crisis is officially averted. The king has his wife, and the kingdom has its king back in action.
But wait, here is where we need to execute a really sharp pivot. So why is the Gandharva actually telling Arjuna this story? Remember, the text we are analyzing is a conversation where a celestial being, a Gandharva, is recounting this specific historical event to the great Pandava warrior, Arjuna. But why? Arjuna is a fighter. He's a general. Why on earth is he being told a story about a king swooning out in a forest over a girl?
The answer lies in Section 4, Vasishtha's true power.
So the crucial point is, the Gandharva isn't actually recounting a romance at all. He is presenting a resume. Because after hearing the story, Arjuna's curiosity isn't about the beautiful Tapati or the lovesick king. No, his curiosity is entirely focused on Vasishtha's ascetic power. He asks the Gandharva to tell him everything about this illustrious rishi who served as the priest of their forefathers. And the Gandharva drops these bite-sized pieces of lore to prove exactly who Vasishtha really is. He's Brahma's spiritual, mind-born son. But even more incredibly, Vasishtha has so entirely conquered desire and wrath that the text literally says these immortal forces used to shampoo his feet. I mean, wow, that is a wild, incredible metaphor for absolute emotional mastery, right? Plus, his mercy is just unmatched. Even when his wrath was provoked by the offenses of a rival named Viswamitra, Vasishtha flat-out refused to exterminate Viswamitra's tribe, the Kusikas. And most tragically of all, even when afflicted by the loss of his own sons, he showed absolute respect for cosmic law. He refused to act like a powerless man and do something dreadful. Like an ocean that never overflows its shores, he refused to break the laws of Yama, the god of death, to bring his children back.
This immense, almost unfathomable restraint is exactly the point. The Gandharva explains that it was specifically because they obtained an illustrious advisor who had completely conquered his own self that ancient monarchs like Ikshwaku acquired the whole earth. These kings could perform grand sacrifices and extend their dominions precisely because they had Vasishtha guiding them, much like the priest Vrihaspati assists the immortal gods. So worldly success, in this framework, is directly tethered to the self-control of the king's top advisor.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the ultimate leadership lesson.
If we bring this ancient text into a modern focus, we see that the Brahmana priest functions basically as an unstoppable chief of staff. They are the grounding force behind the executive power. And this brilliantly illustrates the Gandharva's ultimate conclusion to Arjuna. He tells the warrior, look for an accomplished, desirable Brahmana who is conversant with the texts, in whose heart virtue prevails, and who has his senses under complete control. He who's desirous of conquering the earth should have a Brahmana before him. Because absolute power, the kind of power that wields armies and conquers the whole earth, is dangerous. It's easily derailed, just like King Samvarana was completely derailed by his own desire. It requires a learned, disciplined advisor to channel it, guide it, and ultimately protect it.
So, to wrap up this explainer, power without counsel is just a rainbow on the ground. It has all the potential for brilliance, sure, but it is utterly helpless when faced with the overwhelming forces of desire, wrath, or despair. A true leader needs someone who has conquered themselves to help the leader conquer the world. So as you reflect on this incredible ancient strategy, I want to leave you with one provocative question regarding your own ambitions. Who is your Vasishtha? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.